So you find that your sadhana has been a means of avoidance.
That's an interesting idea. That's an interesting concept. It's possible.
Mm-hmm.
It's possible.
Yeah, I don't mean to oversimplify it.
Yeah.
You know, it's sadhana is everything can be a mixed bag, right? Sadhana and everything can be a mixed bag,
Yes.
and everything is.
Wow, isn't that interesting?
But this aspect of avoidance is what everything is, to some degree.
Every impulse to sort of remedy this.
Yeah, to remedy it, because it is
to avoid it.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
The core, what we call the core wound is too frightening to allow consciously. It's not actually anything to be afraid of, really, but it's so counterintuitive, that confusion and separateness and that lost feeling is anything other than, something's wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So.
And there was also self-judgment in that.
Yes, that's
Self-judgment.
self-judgment is the whole reason we don't drop into it, because we believe it's personal,
Precisely.
and it's actually impersonal.
Precisely.
Right. So it doesn't really have anything to do with us
Exactly.
as persons, as individuals.
Exactly.
It's hard to be here, and the nature of existence is an unknowable paradox. And because of, I say unknowable, it's not unknowable, it's unsolvable, really, as rationally or any other way. It's paradox, and it's damned confusing, and we're not in control there, and we've been told otherwise. So the feeling of not knowing what the hell's going on, and feeling not in control, and kind of lost as far as a means to do something about it, is registered as failure, or personal defect, or as, failure, personal defect. That really says it all right there. And that's how it's interpreted. So there isn't anything to do about it. You're slipping into it despite yourself. I mean, that's why we talk about it in terms of, we call it the rot, because it's not actually anything you do, the way you drop into the core wound. It's more that what you were doing no longer is effective from keeping you from feeling it. And you can be someone who's been doing sadhana and feeling like you haven't really been doing it well enough, and there's a sense of failure there, and you feel like you'll never be able to do it perfectly, so you rot that way. And then
yeah, keep going.
Yeah, and then there's another one, that you've done it perfectly, and it's still empty. So nothing fails like success.
Yeah.
In a way, people who succeed, it's better off for them, because they don't have some last thing that, if I would just go back and do it more, then I would. But very few people can say, I've done this particular yoga perfectly. I mean, there's always like some doubt. If I did it, yeah. Well, you never blame the technique. You never blame the yoga. Or you blame yourself. So, but if you got all the approval from the masters, and they said, "Yep, you got it, you understand it, you perfectly, yes," and still, what you end up feeling is emptiness. And not in the Buddhist sense of emptiness, non-self, but in the sense of empty, life being empty and meaningless and confusing and painful. Then what? There's nowhere left to go. Yeah. I mean, they're usually what we do is we go on and find another yoga, right? So just find another one, another one, another one, another one. But at a certain point, after so many, you just go, I don't have the energy for the next hike up that mountain. I'm not doing the next mountain. I just can't do it. It's not even a decision, really. I mean, not mentally. This is becoming conscious of the situation as it is. That's actually what this whole thing is about. It's about becoming aware that you are the core wound. I mean, we don't really have one. This happens in kind of, you could say, stages. So initially, it's actually registered in the body and in the emotions as a sense of separateness, lost, confusion, whatever, hopelessness. And that's, I mean, so we're positing something that can make a statement that is actually not altogether provable, but when you're actually starting to happen, it's starting to happen naturally, it's useful information to try on for size as you're dropping down, okay? And it's not just theory, it's actually based in insight from those who went through it, but it's theory at this point, right? And that is that what the core wound is a paradox. It's a paradox that you were afraid that you were taking personally, which is the paradox of being both infinite and finite simultaneously. That even before you did sadhana, you had everybody, all sentient beings have at least an intuition, actually usually more than that, and often a lot more than that, but at least an intuition of their nature as unconditioned awareness, as consciousness itself, as freedom. And unconditioned awareness is without any boundaries or limits. It's not even really accurate. The language around unconditioned awareness or around consciousness itself, or however you want to speak about it, is all metaphor. None of it's really how it is. You can't really say it's limitless, because that would imply limits and limitless. It's beyond limitless or limits. It doesn't apply. Limits or limitlessness doesn't even apply to unconditioned awareness. And unconditioned awareness is peace, limitless, freedom. With that little, that little Surgeon General's warning, or that little disclaimer. That's the word, disclaimer. We could say it's infinite love, infinite presence, peace, untouchable, unmovable, indestructible. And there's an intuition that that's actually the way things are, really. And for some of us it's just a little wisp, and for others it's much more clearly defined. And right up against that is, or up against is again a metaphor, but arising in it, but in contrast to that is finite, limited, continuously changing phenomenality. Okay? Which sometimes feels good and sometimes doesn't feel good. Sometimes is expansive and sometimes is contracted. Right? And there's an unconscious comparing of the two. Always. Otherwise, life wouldn't even be suffering. It would just be limited. People would just be like, yeah, I live, I die, things change, so what? That's the way it is. Why is that a problem? Why is that a source of suffering? Why is that anything? This is just the way it is. And of course, some people talk that way, but they're actually hardened. They're not actually allowing themselves to feel. Those who allow themselves to feel often are, it's really difficult to feel this.